just kind of getting towards rock bottom here. But maybe getting nice and pissed off is good for this club right now. I know the blood was boiling there in the third period.
It was a spicy Saturday and Sunday in the world of sports. We had line brawls in the NHL, Lamar Jackson breaking all kinds of records, and of course, Bill Murray singing a cappella with the Cubs on Saturday Night Live. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the Sports Hipster Podcast.
Right now, as I'm very into the universe, the solar system is so humongous big, right?
Playoffs? Don't talk about playoffs. You kidding me? Playoffs? I just hope we can win a game.
We talking about practice. Not a game. We talking about practice. Not the game that I go out there and die for.
You like that? You like that?
It's not the game. We talking about practice, man. What are we talking about? Practice?
Come after me! I'm a man! I'm 40!
Stay classy, Sandy, Philadelphia.
Hello, friends, and welcome to episode 3 of the Sports Hipster Podcast, or as I'd like to call it, the Sports Weekend Wrap-Up edition. It's coming to you a little earlier than the usual Tuesday that I've been doing the last couple of weeks, and it's basically because there's just too much going on in the world of sports to be sitting on this for an extra few days. So I think that this might be a bit of a regular thing, releasing podcasts every few days, every couple days. As this progresses and goes along, I'm sure some sort of schedule and process will be ironed out. But for right now, here's episode 3. Now, one of the first things I want to get to is the game between the Leafs and the Canucks that took place Saturday night. Now, the Canucks, after winning the first 4 games of the season, have been absolutely awful. And so the Leafs basically did what they were supposed to do. They beat an aging, struggling Canucks team that had scored a grand total of 2 goals in their previous 5 games heading into last night's action. And the Leafs ended up winning 6-3. But the score of the game was actually a footnote to the entire evening. The real highlight of the evening were the 171 penalty minutes that were dished out in the game, and 157 of them came in the third. Now, it all started about 6.5 minutes into the third period. Just as Daniel Sedin had scored Vancouver's third goal of the game, making the score 5-3, Nazem Kadri came across the center dots there and just absolutely leveled Sedin with a hit to the head. Now, a lot of people were arguing that, it was a clean hit. It was just an unfortunate position that Sedin was in. But if you look at the angles, you look at all the different replays and you slow it down, you see that not only did Kadri leave his feet a tiny bit, but he also sort of chicken winged Daniel Sedin in the side of the head, who had no idea that he was coming. His helmet came flying off and kind of hit his head on the ice a little bit and was dazed and had to leave the game. It was a stupid play by Kadri. His team's up 5-2. You're almost midway through the third. You know that you've got a team that's completely beaten down and looking for answers right now. And to do that is just really stupid. It's completely boneheaded play, and it does involve a player in Kadri who's sort of used to being on this fine line of legal and not legal play. And the fact of the matter is, it was a dirty hit. So Jannik Hansen jumps in to avenge his teammate, and that's really what started the good old-fashioned Donnybrook. Kadri received a charging major, Hansen was given the instigator, and a game misconduct. Both Hansen and Kadri were thrown out of the game, and then about 5 minutes after that, Derek Dorsett drops the gloves with Leo Komarov. And so, of course, Dorsett received the instigator penalty because he started a fight with less than 10 minutes left in the game. And as he's being escorted out off the rink, he's getting it from the Leafs bench, and particularly Matt Martin, who had a bee in his bonnet all game because Dorsett didn't want to fight him earlier on and picked Komarov instead, which, Leo Komarov is a pretty tough customer. Like, that dude plays a hard game. So it's not like he was picking on the smallest guy in the rink or a guy that's not used to fighting. So I'm not really sure what Martin's problem was. And things just got worse from there. Burroughs lays a dirty spear on Morgan Rielly, and then he ends up fighting him a couple plays later. Vancouver's Eric Goodbranson goes after Komarov, and he gets misconduct. It's all getting kind of out of hand in a game that was pretty much over at this point. And things really got interesting when Matt Martin decided to jump Canucks rookie Troy Stecher. And this drew the ire of Ryan Miller, who has a reputation for kind of being an honorary guy in the league. So he goes after Martin. And of course, you get one goalie involved, the other goalie's got to come. So Frederik Andersen crosses center. Nothing really comes of it. It's basically just tempers boiling over. You have the frustration on the side of the Canucks and the Leafs trying to make a statement and a point. They won't be pushed around. And if you're a Canucks fan, you got to really like the fact that Miller jumped in to defend Stecher in that case, because when teams are going through slumps like this, sometimes that can kind of create a bit of a discord and animosity in the locker room, because these guys have a lot of pride and they don't want to feel like it's their fault, so they start pointing fingers. And so to see Miller, jump in there right away and come to the aid of his teammate, I think that's a good sign. I think that's a sign that, there's still some camaraderie going on in this dressing room and the guys are willing to stand up for each other still. And Matt Martin jumping Stecher like that, it made absolutely no sense to me. It just sort of reeks of a guy who's trying to justify that 4-year, $10 million contract he signed in the offseason. He's having a brutal start to the year. He's got 1 point in 12 games, and that 1 point, which is an assist, didn't come until November 1st. And I think maybe people are slowly realizing that the Matt Martin that was playing with the Islanders is a completely different Matt Martin when he's taken away from a more talented group of players. And I know a lot of Leafs fans and pro-tough guys are going to point to the fact that he was the NHL's leader in hits last season. And do you know how important hits are? So important that when you go to NHL.com and you look up a particular player's stats, it doesn't even come up in the stat line. That's how important they are. This isn't an indictment on Matt Martin. I actually think he's a really good third, fourth line player. But he's expected to be the same player he was with the New York Islanders last year with a less talented team this year. And it is a less talented team. You take away Nylander, Marner, and Matthews, and this is a less talented team than the New York Islanders were last year. Now, last night, the NHL's Department of Player Safety announced that Nazem Kadri would not be facing further discipline for his hit on Daniel Sedin. Their reasoning is that a blindside hit is not illegal so long as the principal point of contact is not the head. Not really sure how they looked at that hit from last night and didn't see that Sedin's head was the principal point of contact. He was in a completely vulnerable position. There was no need for Kadri to go in like that. And this only causes the tension and the anger to boil over for the next time these two teams meet on December 3rd. And, it was reported that Eric Goodbranson, defenseman for the Canucks, was heard saying that Matt Martin was effing dead. So what the league's done here in not suspending or even fining Kadri is they've added fuel to the fire for the game on December 3rd. They don't want an old-fashioned Donnybrook breaking out and they don't want any kind of shenanigans. Well, pro athletes have really long memories. And if the Canucks are in this position or worse come December, you're going to see a team that's basically playing with nothing to lose. And, they won't care if a bunch of guys get suspended or they lose the game. What's to say that on December 3rd you won't have Dorsett or Burrows going out there and taking a run at Marner or Nylander or Matthews. And Kadri's going to have a huge bullseye on his back, and it could be easily avoided if they had just given him some sort of supplemental discipline to let the league and to let the Canucks know that, hey, hits like that aren't going to be tolerated. But now we just got to wait until December 3rd and see what shakes out. So I'm sure a lot of eyes will be on that game, that's for sure. Both from a fan standpoint and also from a league disciplinary sector standpoint. When it comes to the rookie class of this year's NHL, naturally all the talk is about Matthews, Laine, Marner, Nylander, and with good reason. I mean, those four guys are all in the top 5 in rookie scoring. But there are a couple other rookies that are having impressive campaigns and no one is talking about them. First up, it's Jimmy Vesey from the New York Rangers and the Blue Jackets' Zach Werenski. Have trouble saying that. Got a little bit of a stutter. They're both having dynamite years so far, but you don't really hear much about them. And Leafs fans should be pretty familiar with Jimmy Vesey. He refused to sign with the Nashville Predators this past offseason and became a college free agent. And everyone thought that he was going to land in Toronto because his dad, who's also Jim Vesey, is a scout with the Leafs. Now, he sits fourth in rookie scoring, and he's got 6 goals, 4 assists in 12 games, and is quietly putting together a pretty solid rookie campaign. Columbus's Zach Werenski is 6th in scoring with 2 goals, 8 assists in 10 games, and he's a defenseman, and 5 of his 10 points have come on the power play. Now, I think one reason no one is talking about these kids is because they don't play in Canadian markets, where hockey and its players are followed much more closely than those who are based in the US. Although Vesey does play for the Rangers, who always seem to be in the spotlight. But it also doesn't help that 3 of the top 5 rookies play in Toronto, where hockey coverage is on par with presidential election coverage on CNN. But if you ask me, the 2 most impressive rookies so far this season are Mitch Marner from the Leafs and Zach Werenski. With Marner, so many people said that he had all the skill but none of the size to be an NHLer this year, but so far, he's outplaying both Matthews and Nylander, and in my opinion, I think he's been the most consistent Leafs rookie so far this year. And Werenski is a defenseman, one of the hardest positions to acclimate to as a rookie, and he's producing on the power play and logging over 21 minutes of ice time per game. I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that both Marner and Werenski will be in Calder conversation for most of the year this year, even though in all likelihood it'll be one of Matthews or Laine getting the Calder in June. College football Saturday was magnificent once again, highlighted by Louisville quarterback Lamar Jackson, who became the first QB in Louisville school history to rush for 1,000 yards in a single season. Not to mention finishing Saturday's game against Boston College with 7 total touchdown throws. With 4 weeks left in the regular season, the Heisman Trophy is really going to come down to Michigan's Jabril Peppers and Jackson. Both of them have had phenomenal record-breaking seasons. But Jackson has been nothing short of spectacular this year for Louisville. You just hope that he can bring over this type of game and sustain it in the NFL, because I recall another Heisman Trophy winning running quarterback whose NFL career is all but over. In keeping with college football, I've had a few people ask me about the AP playoff rankings. And if you look at the AP top 25 rankings, you'll see, in keeping with college football, I've had a few people ask me about the AP playoff rankings and how they work. And if you take a look at the AP top 25 right now, you'll see Alabama, Michigan, Clemson, Washington at 1, 2, 3, and 4, and they all have 9-0 records. And rounding out the top 5 is Louisville with an 8-1 record. So it seems pretty normal, but if you scroll down a few spots, you'll notice that Western Michigan is also 9-0, but they're ranked 14th. So why is Louisville number 5 with an 8-1 record, but Western Michigan is 14th with a 9-0 record? Well, the playoff rankings are based on strength of schedule. So that means in addition to wins and losses, rankings are also based on the quality of the opponent. So because Louisville's one loss came against Clemson, that slots them higher than Western Michigan, who've won all their games, but they've been against lesser opponents like Ball State and North Carolina Central. And the same logic is applied to how they rank which team is number 1 when all 4 of them have 9-0 records. They just take a look at the kind of opponents that each team has faced and get the results from there. Now I'll admit, the system is not perfect, and there are actually a lot of things within college football that need major makeovers, but it really is all just semantics, because do you really think any school other than Alabama is going to win the national title this year? No, probably not. Yes, just as it was predicted in Back to the Future Part 2, albeit a year late, the Cubs are World Series champions, ending 108 years of championship futility. The curse of the Billy Goat is over, and Steve Bartman can come out of hiding. For the few of you who are unfamiliar with Steve Bartman, let me take you back to October 14th, 2003, Wrigley Field. It was the Cubs versus the Marlins in Game 6 of the NLCS. It was top of the 8th inning, and the Cubs were ahead 3-0. They also held a 3-2 lead in the best-of-7 series. Marlins second baseman Luis Castillo hits a foul ball towards left field. Cubs outfielder and former Expo great Moises Alou attempts to catch the foul ball by leaning into the left field stands. Now, a lot of fans were reaching up for the ball. There was one guy named Steve Bartman who deflected it and disrupted a potential catch by the Cubs outfielder. As the theory goes, if Alou had caught the ball, it would have been the second out in the inning, and the Cubs would have been just 4 outs away from winning their first National League pennant since 1945. But instead, the Cubs ended up surrendering 8 runs and losing the game 8-3. When the Cubs were eliminated in the 7th game the next day, the Steve Bartman incident was seen as the first domino in the turning point of the series. So the Cubs losing the NLCS in 2003 was the direct result of Steve Bartman reaching out for a foul ball. Forget the fact that in that same inning, the Cubs gave up 8 runs and lost Game 7 the following day. And let's say there was no fan interference, that Moises Alou was darting into the stands and just couldn't make the catch. What would have happened then? Would he have to have been escorted out of the stadium by police and go into hiding and receive death threats from the entire city of Chicago? No, probably not. It's so much easier for the media and for fans to blame Steve Bartman for the Cubs losing rather than blaming the Cubs for choking. And Steve Bartman isn't the first or last person in the history of baseball to try and grab a foul ball while it's still in play. Every season you have dozens and dozens of mainly men risking life and limb to grab a foul ball. This past season, Joey Votto gave it to a Reds fan for getting in the way of him catching a foul ball on the first base side. It's always happened, it still happens, and it will continue to happen. It's a phenomenon that I'm actually not 100% sure why it exists. There are countless highlight reels of, again, mainly guys, who are jumping railings, dangling their babies, throwing their beers just to catch a foul ball. And I'm not sure if it's because it's coming off the bat or the glove of one of their favorite players, or if it's like an ego thing. I'm not 100% sure as to why this foul ball is so important. Like, I'm legitimately asking. I would love for some light to be shed on this topic. Actually, this might be a topic I'll tackle in a future episode, and hopefully I can kind of understand as to why people do this. Because it boggles my mind. If I see that ball coming, I'm either ducking or like covering my wife or covering the child next to me. But I mean, I'm definitely not dropping my pizza or my cider to catch a ball. And speaking of ending droughts, Ireland's national men's rugby team produced a heroic performance on Saturday, beating the New Zealand All Blacks 40-29 in Chicago. This win ended the All Blacks' record 18-match winning streak, and it was the first victory for Ireland over the world champs in 29 tests spanning 111 years. The Irish, inspired by the death of their former forward Anthony Foley last month, held off an All Blacks fight back after leading 25-8 at the half. Now, I'll admit, I have no idea what a count 5-4 actually means. I just thought it was pretty awesome that 4 days after the Cubs end their drought in Chicago, Ireland's national men's rugby team ends theirs in the same city. I thought it was pretty cool. All right, folks, that does it for this edition of the Sports Hipster Podcast, and I'm going to leave you with a little Bill Murray and some Chicago Cubs singing a little a cappella. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter, at The Forecheck, and like my Facebook page, which is just called The Forecheck. Thanks, everyone.
And what song is it that you'll be performing?
It's an original composition entitled Go Cubs Go.
Okay, take it away, guys.
Baseball season's underway.
Well, you better get ready, it's a brand new day. Hey, Chicago, what do you say? The Cubs are gonna win today. They're singing, go Cubs, go! Go Cubs, go! Hey, Chicago, what do you say? The Cubs are gonna win today. They got the power, they got the speed to be the best in the